Welcome back to this module on providing culturally responsive instruction for Native American students. The module includes the following sections: the what and why of culturally responsive instruction, understanding culture and Native American diversity, foundations for culturally responsive practice, where to start, some initial guidelines for instruction, going further, more guidelines, pedagogical implications by subject area, and action steps towards developing a culturally responsive practice. This video focuses on understanding culture and Native American diversity. The imperative for culturally responsive instruction encourages us to get a better understanding of culture. Lev Vygotsky, the famous developmental psychologist, stated, "I do not see the world simply in color and shape, but also as a world with sense and meaning. I do not merely see something round and black with two hands, I see a clock." He says this to explain how language and culture are the frameworks through which we experience, communicate, and understand reality. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary includes one of many definitions out there. It states that culture is the customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or social group. Also, the characteristic features of everyday existence shared by people in a place or time. This definition, we think, also includes values. We know that all instructional practice occurs in a cultural context, and we know that it needs to be responsive. But what elements of culture does it need to be responsive to? That is what we will be looking at in the remainder of this section. Bang et al. Advises in their article on mental models that culture should not be understood as individual traits, but rather as the constellation of ways in which people think, act, and make sense of the world. The Metropolitan Center for Urban Education at NYU offers a helpful iceberg metaphor to help us understand these constellations. The iceberg's 3 levels help us to delve deeper into the meaning of culture. Qualities of culture that are more obvious are above the waterline. At an intermediate level are those at the waterline, and those that are more difficult to discern occur below the waterline. Aspects of culture that are above the waterline are surface-level qualities. They are explicit, visible, and taught. These make up the majority of cultural elements that get addressed in schools, although they represent only a small fraction of culture. Surface-level qualities include such things as food, dress, music, visual arts, drama, and crafts. At the waterline, the mid-level, are cultural attributes that are the implicit understandings. These are not as obvious as the surface-level characteristics, but still fairly easy to discern. They include such things as courtesy, concepts of time, personal space, rules of conduct, facial expressions, and nonverbal communication. The deep below the waterline attributes are the most numerous and the hardest to come to know. They take both time and investigation. There are the unconscious rules, the hidden culture, the habits, assumptions, understandings, values, and judgments that we know but do not or cannot articulate. Below the waterline qualities include concepts such as nature of friendships, tone of life, attitude towards elders, concept of cleanliness, and notions of adolescence. Understanding these 3 levels of culture as they pertain to one's own students and their community is part of becoming culturally competent and literate. We will elaborate more on how to get there later on in this module. Unfortunately, culturally responsive instruction is often practiced in a way that only addresses the surface level, above the waterline. Culture at times is also reduced to essentializations, generalizations, and anecdotes that fail to meaningfully connect with Native students and their communities. Instead, contemporary schooling of Native children should strive to be culturally congruous and sustaining of Native cultures and practices. It should strive to heal wounds resulting from past U.S. schooling practices for Native children. Doing the work to understand how all 3 levels of culture pertain to your students will support you in meeting these goals. In trying to understand your students' culture, it's important to understand the diversity among Native Americans, our next topic. As you will see, there isn't a single universal Native American culture that can be learned at the three levels. While Native American tribes share some common characteristics and values, there are also many differences. Consider some obvious points of diversity among Native Americans. There are more than 500 federally recognized tribes, whose members speak more than 200 languages, and live in both urban and rural areas. Given this diversity, no one-size-fits-all perspective works. Tribes differ in terms of values, spiritual beliefs, kinship patterns, economics, and levels of acculturation. Within tribes, individuals demonstrate a range of cultural attributes, such as their disposition, interests, and language use. Individuals also differ in terms of their degree of assimilation to the dominant U.S. culture they've experienced, versus maintaining a Native American identity. Now for some exit questions. What do you notice about your Native American students' culture at each of the three levels? Do you currently take into account any of the three levels of culture in planning your classroom instruction? If so, how? Why does a one-size-fits-all perspective not work for Native students in the classroom? You have now completed the second section of this module. We are grateful to the following individuals for their contributions to these modules: